Hi, I'm Josh Finn. Welcome to the build video for the J&H Aerospace Pinna Flyer. This is an excellent little beginner's model, 12-inch wingspan, includes a loop of 1/8 inch rubber, pre-assembled front end assembly. It's very easy to put together, as you will see in this build video. So, let's get started. So when you open your package for this airplane, inside you'll have a full instruction packet and you'll have some tissue paper for covering your airplane. So we'll take the tissue paper out. You've got all your templates in here and whatnot to build the airplane out. We'll set the tissue paper aside because that's the last step in the build. Inside we have our propeller assembly, rubber band or rubber strip that you will form into your rubber band, some clay balancing weight in case that you use a little too much glue or the kit ends up a little bit light, so CG varies one way or another. Here are your plywood parts, so this is going to be your rubber hook and your wing mount. These are the parts for your fuselage, and then these are the parts for your flying surfaces. We will start by assembling the fuselage. So you should be able to just pop everything loose by popping it out of the carrier sheet, and then the assembly goes pretty quickly from that. So I'll turn this around the way that you are going to be looking at it. So the fuselage goes together like this, so you've got a continuous notch here for your wing. This triangle is part of your motor mount assembly, so it goes on the bottom, and you end up with this shape. So we're going to just use some thin CA, or medium CA, to assemble this guy. And so this part just notches straight in, should be lined up more than sufficiently. Now you can pop this motor hook out and set the rest of this aside someplace where you won't lose it. And what we're going to do is we're going to put glue on one side here, like so. Now we're going to turn this part around, and the back of it will overlap that triangle on the back of the fuselage. So let me show you exactly what that looks like. You can see how the front of it lines up with the front, the back of it. There's this triangular shape going here, and so that's how it fits in place. With that, your fuselage is done. You can, if you wish, to make airplane noises running around the room, you can slide the front end assembly straight on. It just slides on and off like that. Now we will proceed to building out the airplane, or building out the wing. So this will take the longest part of the time. So we're going to pop out all of the parts over here. You want to be kind of judicious with how you pop all of these parts out, so you don't lose track of what goes with what. You can use a razor blade to separate these. I'm going to just go the cheap way and separate them by hand, because I know some of you will have limited access to that, and one of the catches there is on this particular curved part. If you're not careful in doing that, you can break it. And so if you break a part, all you do is you just glue it back together. And then we'll do the same thing over here, carefully breaking this part out. I actually am going to resort to a razor blade because I have one. You should have one. It's an essential tool for making model airplanes. And then lastly, you've got these two parts right here. Just choose one of these. Now we can build ourselves a wing. So the wing is going to go together like so. So you can see all these parts lay out like this. Maybe just like that. And then this part, you'll see that the angles need to match right here. So let me zoom you in on all of this. You can see how it all goes. A little bit of glue there. A little bit of glue here. And so you can pin everything down or however you want to do it. You can, if you're using like white glue, you can just tape over these glue joints. A variety of ways to do that while the glue is drying. On this piece, I'm actually gluing both ends of it because we're enclosing the circle, if you will. So there we go. That's one wing built out. So we will set it aside and we will pop all of the parts out for the next one. Again, we're only cutting out the parts that we really need at the moment. That way we don't end up with a bunch of parts mixed up. I know you have the overwhelming urge to cut everything out and just throw it all together, but you have to be patient because that's part of the art of model aviation. Part of the art of aviation in general. Right, so we will drop out all 5 of those parts, or attempt to. And then lastly, we're going to come over here and we're going to take out the second one of these little pieces. And now we'll set our part sheet aside for the moment. We'll flip this all over so that we're building a mirror image over here. You don't have to do that, but it does kind of help a little. Now this is the important part. You slide this in, you make sure to turn this guy around because these are going to overlap like so. And we'll be back in a moment. So we're going to go ahead and glue all this together, and hopefully I'm not going to just smear everything all over the place. And here again we're being very careful to remember that these parts have to notch into each other. I know this looks like a simple build that just kind of jigsaws together and you want to rush through it, but take your time to make sure that you're following the assembly process I've got here. The reason why that is important is if you don't, you're going to get some parts misaligned and your airplane's just not going to work out well. So you need to be patient. Don't go rushing through this, oh I know how it's done. Take the time to appreciate that this is an engineering project and you need to respect it as such. And there we go. Now at this point, there's a little trapezoidal piece right here. this out. And what we're going to do is this is going to serve as our dihedral brace. So you can hold this down over here, especially if you're using a slower curing glue, you'll want to do that. But use something to hold that down. And now take this side and go ahead and put glue all along it. Set that in here, and as you're doing that, you're going to raise this piece up, use this angled side to support the wingtip, and there you go. That sets your dihedral for your wing. Now while we are waiting for that to dry, let's go ahead and break out all of these parts across here. Leave these alone, these are your vertical stab, we'll come to those last. And there we go. Now this glue is starting to take hold. It's actually drying a little bit slowly for super glue, so I'm going to take this off frame a little bit and set it over there under its dihedral brace. And while we're doing that, we will come in here and we'll finish assembling our horizontal tail. So you want to, again, be very careful with the orientation. You see how it's supposed to go there? So the part with the notch matches up with the notch in the trailing edge. Very important, the airplane will not go together unless you do that. Glue that in so it lines up more or less. Come up here, and you're only going to put glue on this top edge here and this diagonal part right here, and also out here on the end. Get that to line up a little. Things are off just a slight bit because I didn't put this in quite square, but the glue is still soft, so we can come in here and get this adjusted a little bit. And there we go. Bingo. All put together. We'll leave that to dry while we cut out these remaining 3 pieces that we've tantalized you with for long enough now. There we go. And so that's everything broken out of there, so we can set the carrier sheet aside. So now we're going to lay all of this out here. So you can see, let me give you kind of an exploded view there. That's how everything goes together. So take this part back here, that rear facing angled thingamabobber, and it fits in like that. Very important to pay attention to how all of this goes together. The glue's still wet, but I can kind of handle this a little bit. I want you to look closely at how all of that notches together to make sure you get it right. glue's still a little soft here. So, anyway, there we go. That concludes the wood part of your construction for this. Sorry. That concludes the construction of all the wooden parts for the airplane. So now we'll go on to covering. Okay, to glue up all of your surfaces, you have two options. I actually have a third while I'm dropping that on the floor. So this is like Elmer's glue stick. I think there's there's a Yoo-hoo glue that's similar to this. This is the purple stuff. I kind of like it. So that's one thing you can use. Another is you can use 3M Super 77. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the wing in 77, and what I'll do is I'll face the camera out the window so you can see me doing that. I'm not going to take the camera out there because my beloved camera lady is off running errands, and so she can't be out there guarding the camera to keep it from getting glue on it. So I'll give you a quick video of that, of me just spraying it down. There's nothing complex about it. All I'm going to do is lather up the top of this wing. You can use a fair amount of glue. You're not going to make the airplane too heavy. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our tissue. Now this is Isaki tissue. We're not going to supply that in the kits because it's kind of overkill. But I'm putting it shiny side down so that the top surface of the wing is the shiny side, because that's the side you're going to be looking at and seeing and admiring, and rainbows and unicorns and all that. And so what I'm doing is I'm just lining this up so it overlaps onto the center section a little bit. And then we lay the tissue out flat here like so. And we just rub all of this on here. And you can take a new fresh razor blade, or the one that I've been using is close enough. And we're just going to use it to run along the edge here and gently cut out the tissue. And I'll finish, I'm not going to cut all the way around here because I want to go ahead and get the other side of the wing done, and then I'll do my cleanup pass. Partly because this razor blade is getting dull. Remember that part I said about using your fresh razor blade? Yeah, I'm not doing that. Oopsies. And notice I'm using the edge of the table to kind of line up on here. And I left a little bit extra there. I kept this piece of tissue too small. Don't worry, you will not have that problem in your kits because you'll do that worthless. This is what happens when I'm at home and just grab a random scrap of wood to throw in a kit for a build video. Okay, right there like that. All better. And I've got a little bit of excess along the trailing edge here. And like like I said, I left some excess over here. And I'm doing a lousy job of getting it off. And there you go, there's a complete wing. We'll go ahead and get this dihedral gauge over here. The less time this spins floating around, the better. We'll remove the little tabs from it, what it was. And the way this part works is that it notches in like so, and like so. Now we'll pop this back out. I'm going to hit that whole area with some CA glue. I'm going to stick this guy back in here. It does kind of press fit in there, like that. All nice over and done. And then, the way this works, there's a notch that fits into, like so. And the wing lays down in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to glue this in place. So I'm just going to put glue on the underside of my wing here, up into my notch in my little wing mount. Put some CA glue on the tissue where it'll look awful. And so the part that you really want to pay attention to above all else is make sure that the trailing edge of the wing seats down in here correctly. Because the front's going to take care of itself. And that's all there is to that. Okay, so at that point, am I twisting any? No. So make sure that your wing, get this out of the way, going straight down here. Should be no twist in the wing. And I'm seeing that there is some. And I don't want this side to be twisted the wrong direction. So now, about right, you can actually twist this the opposite direction. So we're going to fly this airplane to the left. The torque is going to pull it off like so. So you want some opposite aileron twists like this. And so you want to always be mindful to check that before you go out flying it. Okay, so we've got that done. I'm going to lay out the rest of my tissue paper here. I'm going to take my horizontal stab here, and I'm just going to rub this glue stick all around, like so. And again, you can use 3M77 back here, and you can use this stuff on the wing. I'm just showing you two different possible techniques for how to cover this airplane. And it does not really matter which side of the rudder you cover either, or if you call it a rudder or a vertical stab. It is a vertical stab, just for the record. Now I've got a little bit of excess. I've got a little bit of excess glue down in here, and that just looks kind of cruddy. So I'm going to take it out of there. Not critical, the stuff will dry eventually and then it'll be just fine. The main thing now is we want to make sure the tissue is firmly pressed down into all of that. And there we go. We just want to clean up this bottom edge fairly well because it's going to be notching into some things. You just want to keep the tissue kind of out of the way there. Just makes the assembly a little bit easier. And there we go. Now take your horizontal stab here and these two smaller holes on the front and back. Go ahead and try to get the tissue out of that. You can force the vertical stab through that, but it's easier if you cut it out. There you go. Now we'll hit this with some CA glue. Drop it in here. Now notice I glued along its full length, and that's important to notice because that means I've still got some exposed glue here. That's fine. By the way, make sure you're more or less straight up and down here. And there we go. So we'll take our airplane. Just going to drop those notches right there, straight on down in there. We want to make sure, see I've got some tilt, so get rid of that. There we go. Still tilted just a little bit. And I'm going to hit this with some CA accelerator real quick because it's kind of making this one wander a little bit. I don't know where my dowel went that I was using to dip all this in here. Oh, here it is. And now we're firmly attached. Okay, so go ahead and we'll check our CG. The airplane's currently balancing right about here, and the CG marks are back here. And I actually like it to balance a little further back yet even than that. Now we'll take this, and you want a little bit of excess on your rubber motor. You don't want it to be completely tied up against there. And what we're going to do to tie our rubber motor is we'll tie a knot like this, and then we'll tie the ends in a granny knot like that. Go ahead and snip the ends nice and close. And hit it with a dab of CA just on that little extra part we tied. And there you go. Alright, be right back. Before we wind this airplane up, we want to do one thing. This is Dow Corning 33 silicone grease. This you're going to use to lubricate your rubber motor. Alternatively, you can use something like Armor All or Son of a Gun, something like that. Those are the only three things that I recommend that you use unless you're buying actually something that is a commercial formulation that is a rubber lubricant. Do not use Vaseline or WD-40 or 3-in-1 oil or anything petroleum based on your rubber. The reason for that is this stuff will lubricate your rubber motor. And it will keep it from cutting into itself, and it will make your rubber motor last for a while. So why that's such a big deal? You must lubricate this rubber motor, and you must not use something petroleum based. If you wind it dry without a lubricant on it, the rubber motor will cut itself up. You only get a few flights out of it. Alternatively, if you use a petroleum-based solvent, lubricant, whatever on it. So petroleum jelly, Vaseline, WD-40, 3-in-1 oil, any of that. That is like acid to rubber. So it'll lubricate it for a few minutes. And a little while later, you won't have much rubber motor left because it will just disintegrate in your hands. So do not do that. I'm serious, don't do that. Also, if you have one of those ionizing air filters in your house, yeah, I'm talking to you people that have those things. This is allergic to that. Within an hour, you will start seeing deterioration of the rubber. Within a day, the rubber will actually break into small pieces. So in that scenario, you need to keep this in a refrigerator or freezer or something sealed up in a plastic bag. Don't leave it in a hot car either. That has two problems. One is it destroys your rubber motor. The other is your propeller will melt. So just going to throw those things out there. So to close out, here is rubber motor on the airplane. I'm checking my CG, and it balances right on the mark. So there we go. We'll take it outside now. We'll give it a few test flights. Okay, so we're out here with the Pinna Flyer. We're going to do our trimming with it. It's a little bit breezy out here, so not ideal. But what we're going to do is we're going to start by just winding this airplane up a little bit. So I'm just holding the slack out of the rubber motor like that and letting it get lost. Oopsies. But all I'm trying to do is hand wind it up a little bit, because I've not given this any test glides or anything. Why that's important is since normally I'm not this incompetent at winding these up. Anyway, we want to give this a few winds so that the rubber motor is not hanging loose. And you can braid the rubber motor, so look at our elsewhere on our channel for advice on that. But anyway, we've got enough winds in here to give this a test glide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step back here. And I'm going to throw this into the wind. So what we see there, we saw that the airplane just kind of tracked level, dropped into the ground as the winds, as the last few winds came off. So what we're going to do now, since everything looks about right, we're going to crank it up a little more. So I'm going to show you the totally rednecked method for winding. I'm going to stick this guy on the ground like so, using my foot to hold the propeller. Just do this gently, don't pull back real hard. And you don't have to have a nice winder like this. You can get a nice cheap one from Valère or elsewhere. I'm cranking in about, that was more than I intended. That's about 300 winds. And that's kind of what it looks like. So I'm going to turn you around. And I'm going to let you get a better view of this. So here it goes. And the airplane tracks away, kind of level, and looking good, and down. Okay, so what we want is a little bit of a left turn out of this airplane. So what we're going to do is we're going to bend the rudder a little bit so we can get a left turn going there. Just a little bit. Now I'll step off camera. You've already seen me wind this up, so I'm going to wind it up. Alright, so we've got about 370 winds. We've got some left turn trim. And it takes off kind of heading towards the ground. So we'll fix that. Okay, so we saw the airplane kind of track off towards the ground. It was probably a bad launch on my part. I've got some stuff on here, but we're going to try to make a couple corrections anyway. So I'm going to go, since the airplane rolled, kind of was tracking to the left like it was supposed to, the nose was going down. I'm going to go over here to the right side of the horizontal stab, and then I bend that up, just like that. And that should be enough to take care of that problem. So let me crank in a few more winds here, and let's get that going. So again, left turn looking for some nose up attitude. Airplane pulled out of that just fine. It's tracking around real nice. And down, out of turns. Okay, so I still noticed the airplane was kind of flying around level, not quite as nose high as I'd like. So I'm going to do the same thing I did to the right side, to the left side of my tail. You can see it's now angled up like that, like so. Then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do the same sort of thing to my right wing tip, like that. So I don't know if you can see the difference there. That's to push this down so the airplane will kind of stay flat as it turns to the left. Alright, so we'll wind it up and we'll try again. Okay, so 400 winds, and the airplane takes away very nicely. And drops into a little bit nose down of a glide there. Okay, so now we're going up on 700 turns. Everything looked good before. Down. Okay, so we've gotten this airplane flying pretty well. That was on 700 turns. This motor will take about 1200, maybe more than that. So you can see you can get some pretty good height out of it. The propeller is not freewheeling correctly. You would want to shave down the freewheeler a little bit to smooth that out. And that'll increase your performance some. And then also see our braiding video on taking the slack out of the rubber motor, and that'll improve things quite a bit. You might also could add a little bit of clay to the tail to balance things out, and the propeller, I don't know if you can hear the shaking, but the propeller is out of balance a fair amount. Yeah, one blade is tending to stay down. So anyway, just things that you could clean up to improve performance just that much more. But the important thing is the airplane pretty much flew off the board, and then we just refined it so it flew a little bit better. So I'm Joshua Finn with J&H Aerospace. This is the conclusion of the trimming video for the Pinna Flyer. So see y'all later. Questions, comments down below. We'll see you. 1050 turns. I don't know if I'm getting that one back. And down into the trees it goes. And oh, safely recovered. Nice. Hi, I'm Josh Finn. This is Hope. We are J&H Aerospace.
If you like this video, hit the like button.
Also, how about subscribe to our channel and check out jhaerospace.com for new free flight products and all of the tooling that you'll need to build them.
Thanks for watching.